Yeah, public adjusting has been around since the 1880s. It's been around for a long time. Most people before that used to use just attorneys, but the attorneys weren't properly doing and dealing with the clients, and they really didn't understand construction and everything else. So the states started to set up licensing so that you could become a public adjuster. Now, what is a public adjuster? A public adjuster works for the insured against the insurance company to make sure that the client is properly paid. I think everybody here understands and knows that the insurance company is not your friend. If you've ever had a claim, you know that they'll try to deny, minimize whatever they can, and not really paying you what you're really due to get you become whole again. The reason why I've been wanting to talk to and have been talking to home inspectors is because Hollis is correct. It's a perfect fit. Imagine being able to have you're protecting that family with their first purchase, and then once a year you do a home inspection for insurance purposes, and you find damage that's properly covered under the policy, and then represent that for the insured. It pays really, really well, and you're protecting that homeowner because if you don't put in a claim within a year, the insurance company can actually just ignore you. But if you put it in within a year, then they're obligated. Now, what kind of claims are we talking about? What kind of things can go wrong in a property? That's the one thing that I always found unusual for home inspectors. You're seeing the different things that are going wrong with the property, and all you do is basically tell the future buyer, what's going wrong, so that they can, try to make a much more informed decision about the property. Well, what happens if you can actually help that homeowner get money for the damage that happens in their property? Things change dramatically. Um, there's two different types of states. There are cap states and non-cap states throughout the country. Most of the states are non-cap states. Now, what I'm talking about is what kind of fee you can charge when something happens and you're working for a client. So in a non-cap state, we say do no harm, kind of like doctors. And to do that, we try to do a claim for no more than 20%. So, and we can guarantee the client everything that they need and still cover our fee at the exact same time. So a little $10,000 claim turns into 8,000. I mean, sorry, $2,000 for about 4 to 5 hours. So it's quite profitable to deal with that. And now you can actually go in and help that client. And you have a lot of existing clients that you've had for in the past that like you, love you, trust you, but there's nothing you can do for them unless they buy another property. Well, what would happen if you could tell them that you had another new service? You could go in, do that inspection for insurance purposes, find the damage, and then get them the money to get things fixed. There are so many different types of claims, and they're very statistical, very mathematical. I'll give you an example. If we're talking about a hot water heaters usually last between 9 to 7 years and then they die. One of two ways. They either just stop working or they'll actually burst and damage the property somewhere between $7,000 to $25,000 worth of damage. So if you actually knew this and you knew a way to find these particular events that happen, and that would be through small plumbers, and I can teach you how to contact and have small plumbers sending you business more than you can ever imagine. But a small plumber will see about 2 to 3 covered perils or 2 to 3 type of claims per week. And that's just one particular person that you can actually connect yourself to and then have them constantly send you business. Now, technically, you can actually turn them into consultants by 2 different little documents and actually pay them the money a finder's fee for sending you the client. So you can have an extra amount of ongoing flow for every affiliate. That's what I call them, that starts sending business to you. In the process of doing public adjusting, you'll find out that there's multiple different procedures that we have to follow. First thing is you actually have to be licensed in practically every single state, except for Alabama, Arkansas, and Alaska. Every state has a licensing. They don't even have the ability to become public adjusters in those 3 states. So when you're dealing with the actual licensing board, it's real simple. It's basically a 100 question test. You need to get a 70% to pass. I actually have taught everybody how to pass that, and I prep everybody for the state that they're in. And then you basically have 2 hours, and you need a 70% to pass. And that's one of about 5 things that you put together, submit it to the state, and you'll have your license. Next thing is to understand policy. We're dealing with residential, commercial, business owner policies, loss of use, contents. Then you have to create what is known as an estimate. Estimates will have all the details of the scope of the claim. And in that scope, you're going to be able to take on, how can I put it, what is known as a power estimate. A power estimate will have, at the end of that estimate, and after a little letter that you put in, that will basically state the state laws and the federal laws of why they have to do what you just told them they need to do. It's not just because you said it, you have a license. It's because you're showing facts and evidence, just like an attorney. In fact, all of our answers to their what we like to call is their stupid talking points, which has about a grain of salt of truth, and all the rest of it's a big giant sized lie. So when you're dealing with an insurance company, you need to have facts and evidence. And we actually show you, and we actually come up with the arguments directly from our attorneys that set up the best arguments you can ever find. In public adjusting, it takes about 90 to 150 hours to get where you can actually be licensed and processing business. Imagine all the past clients that you've had that you could turn into new money for you, and you could start a new service. This is pretty powerful because, see, I live in Pennsylvania, and I'm right next to New Jersey. And I was just talking to a gentleman who's also a home inspector who has a lot of contacts with realtors. And he was just telling me almost about 2 weeks ago that in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, we've lost about 1/3 of the realtors in our 2 states. I don't know what it's like where you are, but it's getting hard for people in the home inspection and the real estate business. But they have all these previous clients that they could turn into money very easily. And they know what they're looking for. They know what is wrong when they see it. I was wondering if anybody might have a question they might want to ask before I go on.
Yeah. Take it away, Mark.
Sure. Public adjusting is there's more work now, and if I could use at least 50,000 new public adjusters throughout the United States. There's that much work available, and we're not even talking about storms or anything else. Like, when did we ever think that we would see massive 1.2 million water claims in Texas because of some stupidity of some government guy not putting seals in windmills? And there's just multiple different types of events. Like, I had somebody else talk to me today about what would be good. Would Wisconsin be a great state? And I said, they get up to 5 foot of heavy snow every year. You can actually take a drone, fly it around, and see cracked rafters on practically almost every other house in that state, and that's automatically a covered cover peril and a claim, and can pay quite well. There's so many different types of claims, and you can have literally in this business you can build the ability to be able to have what I call is a kind of a company that's very similar to a real estate broker, to a real estate agent model, and override other people by about 40%. They're making a great living, and at the same time, you're expanding, your reach to the country and helping homeowners.
Mark, when you say you could use about 50,000 of these guys, in what capacity would you be using them? Would we be subcontracting through you? And what is
No, actually,
and
well, we're the largest pub adjusting association in the country, and we actually teach and train people how to do public adjusting, and we support them and we train them to do every aspect, including knowing how to find as much work as they need and to build their own firms if they like. I've been doing this for 25 years.
the training cost what?
Actually, I'm trying to do a special deal for ASHI.
Yeah.
Probably something like one main payment of 600, and then just $60 a month for coaching and monthly dues.
Every state, you were saying that every state has to be licensed, and this would prep you for that licensing, or?
Yes. Yep. When you go for licensing, first thing that we need to do for you is we need to make sure that you understand a lot of the glossary. We have a big insurance glossary because no matter how simple the question is, if you don't know the definition for a word, you can't answer it. So we go through that first. Then we go through what is known as the ISO. That's called the Insurance Service Office. That's the information that the insurance commissioners use to see if they're going to approve or not approve a policy from an insurance company. So those are 7 sections. We have to go through those, and we have live tests and everything else, and training on video and hard copy. And then the last one is the state regulations. What are the laws that have been written by the state for public adjusting? And then we have those, and you just quickly read them, and anywhere like from 29 to 33 or 34 page report that tells you what those laws are.
And do you have sample contracts that you would sign with the people too?
Say again?
Do you have
Oh,
sample
contracts? Oh yeah, no, we have all the documentation, all the letters and everything else that you would need to be able to properly talk to your client, talk to the insurance adjuster, talk to their supervisors and above. Most people don't know this, but the first person who comes out to the house, as far as an adjuster from the insurance company, has the least authority out of the bunch. There's 4 levels altogether, and each level is different from the next. But you always have to start from number 1 and work your way up. And then if you're still not getting what you want, there's a thing called appraisal. An appraisal is not the valuation of a home for a loan. It's actually a claims resolution method. There's 3 people that are involved in appraisal. There's the appraiser for the insured, there's appraiser for the insurance company, and both of those 2 try to come up with who's going to be an umpire. But I show you how to stack the deck for that and actually have the a court judge at the county courthouse where you live actually pick your umpire, because it's actually going to be one of his buddies that we're going to set him up, and he'll pick his own person. Excuse me. A judge will pick a judge, a military guy will pick a military guy, a cop will pick a cop, a doctor will pick a doctor. So I show you how to stack the deck so that the insurance companies don't even see it coming, and you get your client exactly what you need to get them.
Is the stacking of the deck part of what's causing insurance rates to go up so high?
No. When we're doing different things like appraisal, is because the insurance company is trying to minimize what they're supposed to pay. They come up with what we call our talking points. And those talking points have about a grain of salt of truth, and all the rest of it's a big giant sized lie. That's why we come up with the actual argument that an attorney would come up with that's working on our side. Um, we just have to make sure that the insurance company does what's right. They're not doing it because they have to. They're doing it only because they're forced to.
Can public adjusters help people with older houses having trouble finding insurance companies that'll even give them a halfway decent rate?
We can find different insurance companies through our network, and you can communicate through our membership. We have a motto in our association. I think you'll like the motto. The motto is, you can never give out enough goodwill, changing one life at a time, and the life you'll end up changing will end up being your own. My membership actually do that, not just for their clients, but for each other. We figured out long time ago that it wasn't us against each other. It was us against the insurance company. Some of the greatest things we've actually put together as far as claims and different types of things came from a lot of our membership. I was at a conference for another association, which, since there's only two of you guys, you know who I was talking about.
Yeah.
But when I was there, I was talking to a guy that was actually selling and promoting what is known as a ferret chimney camera. Do you guys know what that is?
Sure.
Well, with a
They
ferret
give away
chimney camera,
OMG
You
gives
just gave one away.
Yeah.
great. Well, we'll see, with a ferret chimney camera, you can actually take and put that up into the flue. And if you see the mathematical thing comes in play again. If you're at a home and you see about a cord of wood on the outside of the house, that means that the client is serious about using their fireplace. They use it on a consistent basis. So you've got a 50-50 chance, if you put that ferret chimney camera up into the flue with the little tablet below so you can see the video, you're going to have a cracked flue. If OSHA regulation states that if you're going to have a cracked flue, if the house is a story and a half, which most houses are in this country, then you're going to have to go through OSHA regulations, and OSHA regulations are going to tell you that you have to have scaffolding, and you could be adding easily an extra $6,000 to $10,000 to that roofing claim that you were first there for to begin with, because you found out that they also had a cracked flue at the same time. If you've ever dealt with a contractor that's a roofing contractor, you would have, if you talked to them and you said, hey, by the way, have you ever had it where you've had a claim where a raccoon invades into a house and goes through the attic, goes through the deck and goes into the attic, and they go, oh, sure. But then I always tell them, well, have you had a lot of them? They go, well, not really. That's because you don't know who to talk to. And if you talk to the animal control person, that's the person who actually gets the animal out of the house. You see, when raccoons go into a home, they actually bring in rabies, distemperament, and ringworm. And after two and a half months, those three things combine, and it creates what 20/20 and 60 Minutes called a sick house. And a sick house, you can't live with it, and you can't sell the house because nobody's going to buy a sick house. And if you don't tell them it's a sick house, the disclosure laws in the real estate, they will sue you so badly that you'll never ever be able to own another home ever again. But if you bring in a pub adjuster, we'll be able to get that taken care of, cleaned up, because I'm going to let you know to contact a supply house called John Donne. They're a firewood restoration supply house all across the country, but they teach and train how to sanitize those attics so that they get rid of all the diseases and everything else. And they're, by the way, John Donne's a really good company. They treat their contractors like family, and they treat all of their employees like family too. And there's the two brothers, which is John and Nick. John's still available, and he's part of the board. Really good guys. And we'll give you those kinds of information, give you things that go above and beyond. If you have a client that actually has a fire in the home, well, that means that you're going to have to get them short-term executive housing. so they have a place to stay while the house is being taken care of. We show you how to do that. We show you a lot of really cool things that help you to protect and to service that client. You're not just there just to set up an estimate or to negotiate. You're there to properly take care of that client, and we give you all the special resources to do so.
I have a question. Do you ever find that some people are reluctant to bring on a public adjuster because they don't want to get combative with their insurance company?
Well, number one, usually the reason why they're contacting a public adjuster is because they're having problems and challenges to get properly paid.
Got it. Okay. So you wouldn't expect somebody to just immediately start contact a public adjuster if
A
they
lot
feel
of
like they're
times,
being
a lot of
taken care
times
of.
it'll be through another connection, through a contractor,
Sure.
through somebody else, even realtors. I've had realtors contact me. Since I've been putting together home inspectors. A lot of times people trust their home inspector, and they'll contact their home inspector, thinking that maybe they might have an answer for them.
Okay, but you wouldn't necessarily advise somebody who's having, who's got a claim to immediately consult a public adjuster if they feel as though their insurance company is taking care of it.
We get close to many times more than 4 times what they would ever get on their own.
Okay. Are you saying that you would advise people to not even consult their insurance company, but rather go to a public adjuster immediately?
And the public adjuster can represent them for everything.
Okay.
We take on the position of the homeowner in the claim.
Okay.
Like I was explaining earlier, we got involved with the negotiation on a water damage to a client of mine because the insurance company, they came out and they offered them $13,000 before we ever got involved. And then they had us out and we said, $13,000, it's going to cost $26,000. And they were fighting with us when we were trying to explain to them what needed to be done and what it was going to cost.
Well, a lot of times we end up getting even more than what the contractor thought it should cost, because the contractor doesn't know totally what legally they're allowed to get for the client.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm saying they didn't even want to give that,
No,
let
and
alone
I
anything
know,
other
and
the
and
policy would
they
have
treated the
entailed.
client like they were stupid.
And the client was stupid. The client had no clue what they were talking about, and that's why they wanted us to talk to the insurance company.
Yeah, well, that's the way they treat all their clients.
Right.
In fact, they treat their own adjusters that way also.
Yeah, it's the way insurance companies were years ago. They would pay claims. Like I said, I've been doing it for 36 years.
Mm-hmm.
And my in-laws had a water event, and I sent over a dumpster and said, I sent a guy over to start drying the house out. So, I'm a mold guy. So I'm like, you got to get the wet stuff out of the house. You got to get it dried up quick or you're going to have mold everywhere. And they had a bunch of stuff stored in the basement. And I sent a dumpster over there and told them to just throw anything out that, got wet. And they put a bunch of stuff in the dumpster. The insurance people sent somebody over to put a tarp over the dumpster. And then 2 days later, they sent 2 people over to dumpster dive and pull anything out that they thought was salvageable. Like I never knew insurance companies to be like that till, the last 8-10 years.
Well, part of the other problem is that the homeowner doesn't know that they need to make a list of what did get damaged.
Right.
And they're just thinking, I need to get this bad thing out of my house. Well, yes, but also write down what it is, because I don't care what it is, it has a value. And if you had to replace it, even if you didn't ever want it again, you still owned it and you still deserve to have the money for, to replace it if you wanted to. It's not the insurance company's purview to be able to tell you what you can and can't properly document as far as damaged individual things.
Hey, Mark.
Yes,
I asked a question about your contact information because we actually had a fire that was a total loss on a property, and so far the adjuster, he's gotten us less than what we got in the property, and he goes silent on us, and we don't hear from him for like a week, and then we ask him where you been. Well, I can't reach out to you every day and things like that. So we are like in this quagmire because the property burned down. And he was out there that day just signing everybody up because it was like 6 properties that burned down. And well, it was 3 that total burned down, and then the other 3 were smoke damage, but ours was a total loss. So I live in Maryland. I've reached out to the insurance commissioner and stuff like that, but it's like, what's your recourse if the guy's like not doing his job? Because after hearing you sound like you got your act together. This guy, I mean, he just basically gets the 10% and he's just sending us checks to sign because he's representing us. And then we're not, we're in a situation now where it was a rental property. So the rent has been getting paid, but as of December, that's going to stop. And then now the insurance company's telling us we have to incur the loss because we were insured up to $242,500. They will pay for a replacement house, but we have to incur the loss. So basically, so far we got 88K, we got 115 in the property, but now we're in the process. We're trying to get some kind of loan so we can buy a property to replace the one that burned down. What recourse do we even have with that? And we were with Safeco.
I'll say that again, that last thing.
We're with Safeco Insurance. That's who we have.
Oh, okay.
So we're
you-
like lost. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So you had a fire,
Mhm.
by the
Not
way.
caused by our property. A neighbor's house caught on fire and burned ours.
Understood. Yeah, that would be that you'd be subrogated from the other fire.
Mm-hmm.
Subrogation is where somebody else did something wrong, and the insurance company will go after their insurance to try to reimburse themselves. That's what subrogation is. And also that's one of the words you need to know if you're going to take that test.
Right.
Now, it doesn't take long for you to become a pub adjuster.
Mhm.
And if I could actually teach and train more than just setting up an estimate and more than just understanding the policy,
Mm-hmm.
then I, believe it or not, I would have written a book many years ago teaching
Right.
every homeowner how to handle this. But it's more than that. So therefore, I need to set up highly level professionals who understand the procedures of what it takes and the understanding of properly knowing. In fact, I have people who call me all the time because I have a thing on Google. Do you want to learn about how to become a pub adjuster? And I have people coming to me every single day. And the one thing that I do with them is that I ask them some questions because I want to know why they want to become a pub adjuster.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 2 things that you have to have. You have to be a certain amount of crusader. You have to be a Gandalf, like from Lord of the Rings. Where you slam down that staff and you say, you shall go no farther. And you have to have a certain amount of that in your blood. But most people, and a lot of women, by the way, do have that. And that's one. The second one is that you need to understand that it's an ongoing process. It's not real quick and easy and fast. It takes a little time to set up the battle plan, to set up the proper estimate, to know exactly, like a lot of times, and if you're dealing with a roofing claim, they'll send out an engineer. And some people get all upset. Oh, this guy's got, the hash marks on the shoulder and all that kind of stuff. Well, the first thing I tell people is, oh, really? If they're going to if they're telling you they're sending out an engineer, 50% of the time, the guy's not even an engineer. You tell that supposedly engineer that if you're coming out to the property, you better have a copy of your engineering license. Otherwise, I'm going to be contacting the proper authorities, letting them know I have somebody here that's possibly committing fraud. And I'll be pointing at you. So-
How is,
Go ahead.
how is a public adjuster paid?
How much does it pay?
Well, yeah, and how are they paid? Is it a percentage? I thought someone said something about 10%.
Well,
Percentage of the claim.
each different, there are two different states. There are cap states and non-cap states. And a non-cap state for small claims, which can go up to $40,000 because they don't have any contents. Then that would be done at 20%. If you're dealing with anything over that, it'll usually have contents, and then you do that at 10%. In a cap state, it's usually going to be capped. Most cap states are 10%. The only one that's an oddball there is New York. New York is 12.5. But normally it's only 10%, and everything would go for 10%, large or small.
So in other
Um,
words, if there's $100,000 worth of damage to the house,
That
the,
means you're talking about a $10,000 fee, which will
Oh.
probably take you about a week to process.
uh-huh.
Not too bad of a paycheck.
Hmm.
See, contractors, they have costs they have to take care of, right? Public adjusters, we don't have any costs. Well, we do. We have the cost of our software. And you don't buy the software. You actually buy the database that's always changing with the software.
Is
See,
that
as a
what you're
pub-
renting for $60 a month?
Well, let's say we're talking about softwares. There's a couple different softwares, two major ones, or there's three major ones that most people know of. There's one that's called Xactimate. I love to call that Exactacrap because it lies to you in many different ways. If you've ever been a roofing contractor, you know if you take off the shingles, that the tar paper doesn't come off at the exact same time. But the insurance company is going to tell you that it does, and they're going to bundle both those together, and they're only going to pay for the shingles. So they're cheating you on all that tar paper, the removal and everything else that goes along with it.
Pretty
So
hard
Mark,
to-
Dan Blum has a question. Dan, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, how much of this is gonna be like commercial structures or industrial buildings versus residential?
Well, the first thing that you want to do is you want to get so that you understand residential. When you start understand residential, commercial will follow along. I was talking to a person today, and it was a woman, in fact, and I said, what you want to do if you can is to get in touch with and be involved with property managers. Property managers have multiple properties. They're usually of a pretty good size, and that's a great way to work yourself into commercial claims. And then they have associations that they will then hook you up with more property managers, and then they'll start teaching you and showing you the bigger guys, and you'll work your way right into commercial. There's no such thing as a small commercial claim. Now, I'm about to shock a few of you guys, but this just happened to me 3 weeks ago. One of my guys, he's a young guy. He's got to be a little older than 25 years old. And he calls me up a couple days before the actual night that I found out this information. He calls me up and he has to have some challenges fixed by the state, and he needs to have an attorney to be able to do that. So I gave him David Furtado's number, and I said, here, give him a call, tell him my name, and he'll take care of you. I said, it's not going to be for free, but it's not going to be what you normally would think you'd be charged by an attorney. So he did. I'm resting in my chair, which I'm sitting in right now, and I'm, you know how the TV kind of puts you to sleep, especially when you're in your 60s. So I wake up, I have the cell phone on my chest, and I look down, and I got a text. On the text, it's actually all in caps, exclamation point, and parentheses. So I'm thinking, man, whoever's contacting me with text is really excited about something. And I noticed that they texted me about 10 minutes before. So I said, he's got to be there. So I'm going to give him a call. So I give him a call. He says, oh, Mark, David, what you told David to help me with. He solved the problem. And then because he solved the problem, I got hold of a new client, my first commercial account. I said, really? That's so great. I said, how much did you charge him? He said 7%. I said, you could have charged him 10%. He goes, no, this thing was so high, I just didn't think it was proper. I said, really? I said, well, what's the number? He gives me the number. I do the calculations. This 25-year-old's fee is going to be $1.4 million. And it's his first commercial account. Now, I'm not going to tell you that every single one is like that, but he's in Montana and he's just dealing with one of those big commercial contractors, not contractors, farms. And because of that, all these big buildings and everything else, and I guess it was a hailstorm or whatever, it just came through and just devastated everything. And that's what it's going to be. But he wasn't knowing what was going to come. And this kid's been doing small residential claims for a couple of years now. But commercial would be the one place you'd want to go. Also, building a firm around you is also very, very great way to go. If you're married, I got to tell you this, women do great at public adjusting. I always ask guys, does you ever have it where your wife asks you a question that if you answer them, you're in trouble? It's because women are great at asking open-end questions. If you ask an attorney what an open-end question is, he'll tell you it's a hole he just dug waiting for you to fall into it. Women are great at that. And also they're just great at, they'll hold their ground even better than a man. And the other thing is that they're going to connect with the wife. And if it's a large claim, they're going to be the people, the wife's going to be the one that's going to determine who they use. That's why women do so well. First woman that started with me, named Wakamba, stayed with us for 10 years before she retired at the ripe old age of 47 with over $6 million. So women are great at this. Also, if you have kids, they're just hitting 18 or in their low 20s, and they still haven't really found a place to land. Well, man, turn them into public adjusters. They'll have a better life than you can ever imagine. And not a bad deal to turn them into a public adjuster, home inspector, or home inspector, public adjuster, whatever you want to call it. But I think that's one of the most greatest combinations, and I don't know why. I've only met a couple people in the past that have ever done that. But you guys have some of the coolest tools on the planet. More public adjusters want to get your tools than any other place. I mean, we use moisture meters, we use thermal imagers. I'm now pushing the ferret chimney camera, and there's a few other small things. But you guys have, that's just the beginning of what you guys have.
Did you say earlier that if somebody has a crack in their chimney, that is an insurance issue?
And the flue.
Correct.
Yes. That'll create a chimney fire, and and if you protect and get that taken care of, you could be protecting that family from having a fire where, there could be fatalities.
So an insurance company, if you file a claim with that, will cover a chimney lining because of the crack in there?
Yep.
Didn't know that.
You ever have it where
They find cracks in every chimney.
Yep. And usually it's because of heat.
Now, what about if somebody comes in and says, well, that crack has something to do with the way it was constructed? That's not covered.
Prove it. Here's another story. Another one of my guys calls me up, tells me that he's got a particular type of claim, and he says the insurance company is telling me that they have a contractor that says he can do it for $24,000. He says, I have two contractors, highly reputable contractors, that have both the estimates are so close it's not funny. He says they're both almost right on the money on $74,000. Mark, what do I do? Real simple. I said, now listen to me. I said, number one, two's great. I said, I want you to try to find a third one that says almost the exact same thing. The exact thing. Two, whoops. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My computer just fell off my lap. 2 could be a coincidence. 3 will be proof. And I said, okay, now if this was like a fire water restoration claim, then I would also contact John Don and show them the estimates and get their opinion from it. That's another expert. I also, if there was a particular product that we were using that John Don was supplying, I'd have them connect me to the manufacturer so that I could also talk to them as well and get anything I might be able to get from them. And then I'm going to have those other contractors, and I'm going to say, tell me, why is $24,000 not right, and why is $74,000 correct? Have them help you create your argument. You don't have to know everything, but you need to know where you need to go. You guys have ever watched Pawn Stars? The show?
Sure.
Well, Pawn Stars, what does Rick do? He always gets an expert to help him to determine something about a particular item. You need to do the exact same thing. If you're dealing with carpet, then you would go to the old timer at the carpet store that's been around since God created Noah's Ark. So you need to get your experts in line, and also knowing how to do a proper estimate, having all the backups with all the power notes and everything else, and knowing how to properly negotiate. I actually have our second level in negotiating is really cool. I have you talking and learning from a gentleman who's the #1 negotiator in the United States. You might have heard of his name. His name is Chris Voss. He was the #1 negotiator for international terrorism for the FBI. And he will teach you how to manipulate the emotions of your opponent, and they'll never see it coming. And Harvard Law School threw out their stuff, and Harvard Law School used to be the place to actually learn how to negotiate. Not anymore. They tip their hat to Chris Voss, and now everybody goes to him. And so whatever I find is the best for you to learn how to do everything the proper way and the best way is what we do. And our site is bigger than the Encyclopedia Britannica. It's over 24,000 pages. It works perfectly with your PC and your cell phone, but it's all broken down into simple, easy, manageable bytes so that you can quickly find it, use it, and use the applications for it.
And what did you say?
Where is your training, Mark?
What's that?
Where is your training located?
It's online. The gentleman who taught me how to teach online, some of you might have heard his name before. His name is Dr. Bill Bennett. He was the educational secretary for Ronald Reagan. One of my partners used to be a gentleman by the name of Doug Weed. Doug passed away on my birthday last December, which thank God I didn't know about it until 2 weeks afterwards. But he was special liaison for George Bush Sr. Because of that, I finally contacted Dr. Bill Bennett, and he opened up his heart because I was, a connection with, he was my partner, Doug, and Doug had just a phenomenal reputation. 29 New York Times bestsellers, and I could just go on and on about Doug. He would speak in front of coliseums of people, 50,000 people at a time. He was just off the hook. #1 speaker in the world. And I miss him deeply. But
What is the software that you like that you don't like Xactimate? What do you like?
I like Simsol, SIMSOL. Simsol is actually a menu-driven software. You can be a 7th grader and run Simsol real easily. It's also cheaper. Xactimate and Symbility is a little cheaper than Xactimate, but Xactimate is literally $300 a month. It's ridiculous. It's not worth it. Simsol is $160 a month, and it's been a couple months ago they just raised the price, and they hadn't raised the price for 10 years. And when I was talking to Simsol at the main office, they were telling me they're probably not going to raise it again for another 10 years. But it pays for itself dramatically because as the prices of things rise, so does your income. You don't care about two things. You'll no longer care about inflation because as the price of things rise, 14 months ago, a sheet of CDX was going for $27 to $29. There are certain parts of the country right now, a sheet of CDX is now going for between $60 to $90. And you don't care about the economy anymore. Because we work on the other side of Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong at the most inoperable time. Most people don't realize this, but it's very consistent.
Hmm.
You know, when you're checking into homes, a lot of times you'll see the same kind of consistent damage in the same style house in the same kind of neighborhood because of how the manufacturer used whatever materials or whatever they put into their property, and also other different things as well.
Go
But it
through
doesn't. Go ahead.
go through a typical scenario. Somebody needs a public adjuster. They call you up. How does the conversation go, and what's the first step in initiating the scene there?
Well, actually, it's not. They don't always know to call me. I live where there's more people who know about public adjusting than any other place on the planet, because it actually started here, in the 1880s. And then there's some places in Florida that know it very well, and a few other different states here and there. But most people, you can talk to 4 people, even where I live, and only 1 out of 4 would actually know what a public adjuster is. So it's not a matter of the homeowner knowing, but the contractors know it, and other different specialty people. If you're in a RIA, Real Estate Investment Association, which I used to be a national speaker for, trust me, I've talked to enough of them. And they all know, either from me or from one of my cohorts that I sent to work with RIAs, that they know what a public adjuster is, and they'll then notify other people. But most people don't know what a public adjuster is, and usually you'll get a lot of work. Like there's different ways. Like I was talking to you about a cracked rafter. Well, if I'm driving, or I'm using my drone, I can see the cracked rafters. Because if I see a dip in a rafter line on a gable roof, I know it's a cracked rafter. There's not enough movement in the rafter so for it not to crack. So automatically, I can just door knock it, show them the picture, and sign up a claim. Or you can see wind damage if you're using a drone. Drones are great. We actually teach people how to get your FAA license so that you can fly that sucker practically anywhere, almost. And it's a great way to find a lot of business.
Yeah,
And
but,
you can,
but what if the cracked rafter happened because they've been venting their bathroom, say, in a tight attic for years and years, and this thing has taken 20 years to develop? Is that still a claimable thing?
most times when you have a cracked rafter, it's going to be because of snow load, because it's pushing in, not out.
Well, I'm just saying, if it's something that developed over a long period of time, is it still a claim?
Well, the great thing about that is that insurance adjusters are not omnipresent, or not. They don't know everything, and they haven't been everywhere. So it's not a matter of that they can come up with an excuse and try to nulligate whatever is on the property.
Well, I'm wondering if, like, homeowner neglect or something like that, or homeowner.
Real quick, just real quick, which will also help answer this question for you. Insurance adjusters are poorly trained on purpose. The insurance company feels the least they know how to write on, the least that they're going to have to pay on. That's how they operate. And I consider that to To me, that's bad faith.
I can give you an example of something that happened recently. I found some trusses that had about an inch separation from the top cord from a vertical piece.
Mhm.
There was probably about 3 of them that were like that, and then there were several where the I'm blanking on what it's called, the cleat that they pressed these things together with had splayed out and was no longer securing the cord together.
Now,
And
one of the exclusions, let me tell you what a covered claim is first. That'll be really helpful for you. A covered claim will mean first that I have damage. If I have a water stain in the basement because we had water down there and we got it all cleaned up, but we have just a little faded stain on the concrete, that's not a claim. But if that water hit a studs and drywall in the basement that was there with insulation in it, that is a claim. Or if it hit a wooden floor and everything that would go along with that. So first I have to have damage. Second thing is I have to make sure that there are no exclusions. That means you have to know the exclusions. And the third thing is, has the client met all the conditions? You know how like you go down to Florida or some major storm and you see all the blue tarps on the roofs? That's because one of the conditions is that you're supposed to minimize any additional damage that might have happened to the property. And that's what your job also is, to make sure that the client is doing that, either putting up a blue tarp or they're getting a plumber in there to open up the wall and fix the pipe that's leaking up behind the wall. Whatever they can do to stop or minimize any additional damage. Why, if you guys actually own pickups, then let's say if you want to get fire claims, one of my best guys, Kenny Stokes, is the #1 fire guy in the country. And my son was thinking about doing fires, and he lives in Tennessee. And Kenny, I said, Kenny, would you mind talking to Alex? He goes, oh, sure. He says, I wouldn't even be in this business if it wasn't for you. So he gives a call, and my son, of course, he records it and asks him if he can record it and can we use it? And he said yes. But one of the big things that he said was, in order for you to get all the fires in the area, in which he does, is that you become a board up company, which means you learn how to create special templates and actually this for the size and design for different doors and windows and things. And then you have maybe 1 or 2 sheets that are just there in case you come across something that doesn't even fit that, so that you can then board up and stop any person from actually invading into a fire property to steal whatever they wanted to. Although I always say you only have to do the first floor, because if you actually see somebody on an aluminum ladder on a house that just had a fire, ding, ding, ding. If you're the next door neighbor, that's a thief. And the person you call is a policeman. But you can actually pick up that fire by doing the board up and getting paid for it also. And then while you're there, in case the local government says that you can't talk to them for at least 24 to 48 hours after the fire, that's great. I'll do the board up, and then I'll tell them I'll be there either 1 or 2 days later, and we'll get this all taken care of. And I get the public adjusting also. And that's what he does. And there's no such thing as small fires. And I think somebody else said, one of the things about fires is also the smoke damage that will happen to your neighbors. That's true. Let's see. Doesn't take that long to become one. Doesn't take that long to set up your affiliates. And learning how to do the procedures for it it's all common sense in many different ways. But we go over the details for you on every aspect of what it takes to be a public adjuster. And it comes with phone and email mentorship. So between 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, I'm there for you, except for holidays and if I happen to go to, and excuse me for saying this, if I go to an InterNACHI conference, because I'm a speaker there, then I'm always there for you. So you're never out there by yourself.
Do you worry about Nick setting up a Nachi
Public
panel?
Adjusting Association?
Yeah.
No, Nick's so involved with so many other different projects right now. You know, I remember being in Philadelphia at a NAHI convention. You remember those guys?
Yeah.
And what's that?
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was there, and there were a bunch of NAHI guys, and a few of them were also ASHI. You know, how a lot of guys would have
Yeah.
multiple different associations that they were members of, and they were laughing and joking and everything else. And I said, "What's so funny?" He says, "Oh, there's this new guy. His name is Nick Gromyko, and he thinks that you can do all of this over the internet." And they're laughing so hard, they're not laughing anymore. Nick doesn't do anything else involved with the association anymore. That's all done by his brother, Ben, Ben's got a great reputation. He doesn't ever want to have his brother feel that all the guys and gals for InterNACHI aren't being taken care of. And I've met both of them, had a long discussion with all of them. But no, he's not going to do what I do. He'd rather I protect his people, because last year, I don't know what happened with you guys, but from my connections with the InterNACHI, almost all 33,000 of them were down in their business last year, 40%.
Wow.
I don't know what it was like for you guys, but can't do that for very long before it really affects you. And then this year, like I said, we've lost 1/3 of the realtors. So I know it's even, because these stupid snowflakes aren't willing to pay 6% and 7% interest rate. Isn't that ridiculous? Heck, I paid 9% for my house.
Well, I bet you if the realtors dropped their commission to 3% now that the houses cost twice as much, they'd still have as much business.
Yeah, the problem is that and excuse me for saying this, it's just a couple things I've heard from other different people, that realtors aren't really all that well trained like they used to be. They're not the same realtors that you would have found 10 or 20 years ago. We actually help you to actually give you support that you can give away things to the realtors for having them do business with you. We have a whole complete staging program, which teaches people how to stage properties professionally, and also decorate houses as well. And you can give that away to all of the realtors that you're dealing with, as long as they're sending you business. And then also we have a whole thing on how to manage properties, how to do landlording, which a lot of realtors like to get into that part of the business. And you can give that program away to them as well. And it's totally, you get it for free, and you can pass it on to them, so that for them doing business with you.
All right. Well, when I invited Mark on here, I told him I'd give him 10 minutes and I'd cut him off told him I'd cut him off if he went to 15 minutes. But then
there's just so many questions, I know.
Well, when we flip the time, sometimes the hour-long speaker hangs around afterwards and takes questions. So it's kind of convenient that you were here at the end, because I think Scott was done 15 minutes early. But I'm not gonna shut you down. If people want to keep talking, that's fine. But let me just say this: anybody who wants to be in touch with Mark, put your contact information, put your name, your email address, phone number in the chat, and I'll make sure Mark gets that information.
Well, somebody put his link up on the thing, so that's also in the chat. It's his.
Yeah, I've already signed up.
You already signed up?
Yeah. I'm on his website right now.
Yes, Sam, so am I.
Yeah, I've already signed up, so I'll be hearing from you.
You
That's at
signed up?
howtobeapublicadjuster.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
What is a public adjuster? What does one do?
Well,
Well,
that's-
first, you
Oh, no.
you know how to inspect the property for anything that might be wrong. I always say it's like walking through a house looking for gold bars and gold nuggets that nobody else knows they're there. Then the second thing is that you have to understand what kind of policy that they have. There's multiple different types of policies, but the majority of policies that are out there are what is known as an HO3 or an all risk policy, which basically states that if you have, like I said before, if you have damage, there's no exclusions, the client's met all the conditions, you have money. It's there for you. All you got to do is just set up the scope of the claim and then present the claim, and maybe have to do a little bit of negotiating at the end. To find claims, we go through a whole set of really cool marketing ways of doing it. And there, a lot of times, the people who come to me are people who are contractors, roofing contractors. And a lot of times they think that all you have to do is just get that license. And the problem is that just makes you dangerous to you and everybody else. And I always say to them, I said, there's a few things that you could do wrong that if you didn't hear me tell you the right way to do it, you could literally find yourself in an orange jumpsuit. But we go over all that stuff and we help guide you through and help protect you throughout the whole process of becoming a public.
Hey, Mark, quick question for you. There's several of these companies out there that they're called storm chasers. If the contractors aren't allowed to negotiate with the insurance companies anymore, are these storm chasers? Are they also public adjust? Do they have somebody that's a public adjuster working with them?
I've set up a few of those kind of companies in Illinois. They come to me because Illinois, you can be a pub adjuster and a contractor at the exact same time. Most of the time, what they'll do is they'll have either their wife or somebody else that's related to them become, and we found this out because of Colorado. Colorado, the majority of contractors are family run and owned. Uncle George is the contractor, cousin Bernie is the public adjuster. So, and then what they do is they say when they get back to the house, all bets are off when it comes to sharing leads and all that kind of stuff. But usually you want to have somebody, can't be both owners of both companies. But you can have your wife be the owner, you can have anybody else. They just can't own both companies and other states.
Do you know about Maryland?
Yeah, Maryland, you can be both. New Jersey, you can be both. And Georgia, you can be both.
So these guys may be public adjusters as well as the contractor, and that's how they're getting away with negotiating with the insurance companies?
In those states, yes.
Gotcha.
Florida trying to do something right now to curb all of that?
Yeah, Florida's got a lot of special regulations that are totally different. Florida, you actually have to go through a 40-hour pre-licensing course. New York's the exact same way, and so is California. Now, I don't do a 40-hour pre-licensing course because they want to charge me an arm and a leg to be able to just have the opportunity to do that. And if I were selling life insurance, health insurance, all those other different kinds of insurances, then I could afford that. But since I'm only doing pub adjusting, and we don't have a rush of pub adjusters, most people don't even know what pub adjusting is. So it's only when they find out that it's extremely lucrative, and that and they've met somebody who's been a pub adjuster, that they actually think that they want to become one, or they're a contractor who's learned it through that way. But I'm really excited right now because I want to create a new paradigm. I want to create the home inspector adjuster, somebody who is inspecting one time to protect the client for their purchase, and then protecting them once a year with a simple 15, 20-minute inspection every year, so that they protect that family. Because what happens to a house? Usually there's something goes wrong here and there, and before you know it, they don't take care of it, and the house looks run down that it shouldn't.
And you're saying someone can make a claim on that?
A claim on what?
You know, if someone's, you know, soon a house looks like it's run down.
No,
I
no,
mean-
each individual thing that might happen might be a claim. But these are things because they're not taking care of the things that should, and it's not because of wear and tear. It's because of an event that happened.
Mhm.
How many times have you ever gone up to a house and you've seen a couple shingles that aren't matching on the roof, and they look more like a big giant sized Band-Aid? Well, the valuation of that house just went down.
Sure.
And in fact, the person you bring in is not an engineer in that scenario. The person you bring in would be the realtor, because the realtor understands valuation. What's it going to sell for now?
Mark, to finish up the story I was telling earlier about those trusses, after I found them for my buyer,
Mm-hmm.
the seller, of course, got very upset because they just bought the house a couple years ago, and they said their home inspector didn't say anything about damaged trusses. Long story short, they called their insurance company and said, it must have been from, we had an earthquake here. Or, they're not sure what caused it, but something caused it because it wasn't there before. And they brought an engineer out, and the engineer said that he thinks that this was damage prior to the trusses ever being installed on this 26-year-old house.
Right.
So that's
Poorly
what
manufactured.
Yeah, he was saying it was a manufacturer's thing. So the insurance company denied their claim, and they wound up paying $6,000 to another engineer and a contractor to get the situation repaired.
They probably lost their insurance too.
Yeah, probably. They're like, yeah,
Well, they're probably surcharged for it.
yeah, well, they do that too. I know that for a fact. I got hit with a surcharge when I made a claim like 20 years ago. Kind of shocked me. It was called an education.
Yeah, but it's not hard to fight that also, by the way.
Yeah, well, I fought it. I fired him and got a new insurance company. The surcharge disappeared. But nowadays,
A man
all
with the
that stuff follows
the man with the proper attitude.
you. Yeah,
I have a guy that's a pub adjuster. He lives not too far from me. He's one of my members. He used to be a federal agent. He's also got the right attitude. I was telling you about that one attorney. His name is David Furtado. Not all attorneys are created equal. There's one particular attorney out there, I won't mention his name, but he always likes to settle. And David Furtado's normal phrase or sentence that he always says is, there either was or wasn't enough blood on the floor when he was done. He hates to lose and will not lose because he goes after them with hammer and tong. I love the man. In fact, we're getting ready to do a video blog posting similar to like a Joe Rogan. I've just got my whole studio up, and we'll be doing whole blogs I'll be having one of the top guys who understands roofing and siding, and David's the number one attorney when it comes to setting up the best argument. And I've got a lot of guys just like that are all specialized, and we'll be doing a show that's going to be put onto the site for everybody. And then we'll also be interviewing all of my members so that everybody will be able to hear their story about how they did it and how they grew it and so forth. My wife just says I like to talk on the phone.
Mark, it was nice meeting you. I'm going to step off here. Got a couple reports to get out tonight. Thanks for answering the questions.
Anytime.